So one thing I forgot to talk about in the tutorials very much was this thing called, this idea of categorization. So on the exam, there's some questions, things like, if a student gets greater than 80%, they should get an A. If they get between 60 and 70%, they should get a C. If they get between 70 and 80%, they should get a B. That kind of thing. Lecturers do that all the time. How do lecturers do that? They look at the number, they go, that student got a 71, that's a B, and they put a B in the column. And then they look at that one and they go, they do that all the time. And that's, people with PhDs and stuff, right? So it's out there in the world, it's quite common for people to do manual things really slowly. And that's okay if you've got lots of time. It's completely fine. The thing is often in the world you want to do things efficiently. On the exam, you really want to do things efficiently because you only got 2 hours, so you want the fastest way to do things. So you make a formula to do things like that. So I'll show you 3 different ways to categorize things. So this is the problem statement. You've got to categorize a column. Both of these are from the exam. One's from the 2016 exam, one's from the 2015 exam. You can tell that I'm going to have a categorization question on the exam because I like categorization questions. So this is the idea. You've got a column with a lot of lengths of stay in it, and you want to give them a category. And this is the lookup table. This is how you would do it. You'd say, if the length of stay is 0, then it's an error. Nobody can stay for 0 days. If they only stay for 1 day, they're a single day stay. If they're 2 days, they're an overnight, so on and so forth. The way that you already know how to do it is a lookup. So you'd say, in this cell, go to this cell, look up this in this table, in this column here, and return to me this other value. And that works well for 0, 1, and 2. It says, I know what they are. The problem is here. Like you and I see that 3-5, and we go, oh, that means 3 days to 5 days. Excel sees that 3-5, and it says, what does Excel say when it sees that? It says, yeah, it thinks that's the 3rd of March, 3rd of May, because America, and it might be the 5th of March actually, but it just translates. It says, oh, they're obviously trying to type in a date here. Just screws up your formatting, everything. So it doesn't see that as a range of numbers, even though we kind of know that greater than 5. We know that. So there's a few ways to do it, of course. In computers, there's always a few ways to do it. One way is to just take that and make it into a big lookup table. So an exact lookup, so 0 is an error, 1 is a day, just like the similar, but 3, 4, and that should be 5 should be short as well. So you make a lookup table for all possible values on length of stay. And that works. There's not a lot of values of length of stay. Maybe you get up to 100 or something like that. So your table's going to be 100 long. But it's kind of painful to do all those individual values. That's the problem is down here. But that's what the VLOOKUP looks like. You say VLOOKUP this category. You look it up in the category spreadsheet, and you return and you use the false value because you want an exact lookup. I think I've got a spreadsheet that shows that. Oh, I've got a spreadsheet that shows your room numbers. Let's save that. Yeah. So here's our length of stay to categories. Yeah. Anyways, good. So that's what we want it to look like. We want it to be a single day stay, short, long, medium, those kind of things. So another way to do it is this idea of using if statements. So using this thing, and again, there's 100 values to look up. The first 50 are all n. Seems a bit boring to use a lookup table for that. So an if statement is a straightforward way to do it. It just uses formulas, and it's the only way to implement multiple conditions. So for example, if they were 50 and a master's student, they get a certain mark if they're 50, and an undergraduate student, they get a different mark. You could imagine things like that, different categories of student. So the only way to do that is with an if statement. But we're just going to do a simple if statement just with these values. You could use a lookup for that, but you're going to do it with an if statement. So the idea is if their mark is less than 50, then give me an N. If their mark is between 50 and 60, then give me a D. If their mark's between 50 and 70, and so on and so forth. And fortunately, Excel does have an if statement. And the if statement has got three parameters. There's the condition, there's the true, and there's the false. And if you have a simple categorization, that's all you need. If, condition, true, then false. So let's just take the first one of these and use that as a categorize that way. So a single if, a simple if statement, if condition, true, false. For example, if cell A2 is less than 50, return N, and if it's false, it's more than N. So it does solve that problem. It solves this one. If they're less than 50, it will find them. If it's more than 50, it won't find them. An example spreadsheet here is, I think, I have it here somewhere. There we go. So that does that there. Can you see that? If A2 is less than 50, N, not N. But in fact, we don't actually want it to say N. We want that grade to be an A. So we want more than just that formula. It's good to get going on it, but it doesn't show us the full complexity of what's going on there. So the simple formula is that. The trick with when you've got multiple criteria, is you want to replace this part. You say, well, yes, if it's less than 50, we know that it's N. Satisfied. 42, N. 36, N. But if it's more than 50, it gets more complex. We want to be able to divide up the section above 50. So this more than N has got to be more complex. We've got more information in that section there. So how can we do that? Well, we could just say more than N and leave it at that. Okay, there's like 3 people in the class who failed and everybody else got more than failed. Now, you wouldn't be satisfied with that. You'd want to know your exact mark. We want to zoom into this. So we replace this with another if condition. So the idea is if, and the reason, and I put it on multiple lines here, so you can kind of really see what's going on. And whenever you're doing complex if conditions, it's actually quite useful to do them externally in an editor and make it all look nice, and then paste them into Excel, because it's complex. So if A is less than 50, and then the else condition over here, we've replaced that with another entire if condition. And that's saying if A2 is less than 60, they've got a D, and otherwise they're more than D. So we have that same cop-out at the end. We just say, well, they didn't get a D, we'll give them more than D, we'll put that at the end. But at least we've taken care of the lowest two conditions here. We've taken care of the less than 50 condition, we've taken care of the less than 60 condition. We've copped out here, we've said, more than D, that's fine. And you'll notice that there's 2 brackets down here. That closes this if condition, and it also closes this if condition. Everything is inside the one if condition. Why that is because in the Excel sheet, you can only have one function. The one function is an if statement, but inside that function, you have another function, the if statement. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, going down a little hole, and but now you can have an idea. I'm sure in your head you've got an idea of what how we're going to deal with the B, the C case. Oh yes, something else here. You'll notice back here we had if it's less than 50, it's an N, but if it's greater than or equal to 50 and less than 60, it's a D. Well, we've got this condition in our second if statement. We've got this condition in our second if statement. Why don't we have this condition in our second if statement? What's missing? Why is that not there? Why do we not need that? So
default in above 50 categorizes to something that's not there.
Yes, yes. So it's true. If it's above 50, it categorizes to something that's not there. So by the time it gets past this statement here, we know that it's above 50. We don't need to say greater than or equal to 50 in the second statement, because we know, because it made it past this one, it is greater than 50. If it makes it past this one, it's greater than 50 already. All we have to do is check to make sure it's less than 60. So the first condition is it greater than 50? The second condition, is it greater than 60? If it makes it past this condition here, makes it past there, we know that it's greater than 50. If it's less than 50, it'll stop there. If it's greater than 50, it'll make it to here, and then we can categorize it. We can say, is it less than 60? So we've taken care of the 50 case already. And if it's greater than 60, we know that it's more than D, but we might want to categorize it even further. And in that case, we put another layer on. Less than 50, less than 60, less than 70, it's a C, more than C. Less than 80, if it's a B, or more than B. What should the next, what are we missing there? All you people who are sitting in class at this very moment, most likely people in this entire health informatics B to get this mark. An A! Exactly. Where? So what are we going to do with the A's? Well, we could say if A2 is less than 100A, or if we could say if A2 is greater than or equal to 80, it's an A. But we know that it's an A. There's only 5 grades. We can put the A in there. So it's very simple. Cool. So that's what a nested if statement is. It does everything a lookup would do. And sort of simpler in a way, because you don't need another bit of data over there. The information about how to categorize is in these conditions. You can make the conditions more complicated. You can say, if color equal to green and tree shaped like a cone, therefore a conifer, else eucalypt. You know, you can do more complicated things in more complicated conditions. With a straight VLOOKUP, you can't have complicated conditions. You can only have just numeric conditions or text-based conditions. But that's kind of a little fancy thing. I should tell you that these days they give us a spreadsheet. The LMS, the people in ICT, they give us a spreadsheet with that formula in it, so we don't have to calculate your grades by hand. So therefore, your letter grades will probably be correct, unless the lecture is screwed up. Cool. So that's nested ifs. Any questions about nested if? You can imagine doing this in the exam in 5 minutes. Yeah, practice it a bit. Yeah.
You said VLOOKUP is only for numeric. You can only do numeric.
It can actually look up text too. So it's it's only VLOOKUP's only good for simple lookups and inequalities. You can actually do this in a VLOOKUP, and I'm going to show you in the next slide how to do it in a VLOOKUP. But it's just for simple conditions, simple single criteria.
So, like if the variable is continuous, then this one is like this one continuous variable.
Yes.
Then this one would be better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, if the variable is continuous, VLOOKUP is, I actually like VLOOKUP better because the information is more clear. There's not so many brackets in a VLOOKUP, and brackets are messy. So I do like, you only have to refer to the cell once in a VLOOKUP. So I'll show you that in the next slide. But this is good when you have complex conditions. If you have to do more than one thing, and it's good. It's kind of quick and dirty. You don't have to make another table for it. You know, for example, for for this one, I had to make a lookup table, and then I had the formula separate to the table. So you need, you generally put that on its own separate sheet. It's just kind of messy. Whereas if it's just a formula, it's sort of more portable. You can just take that. I mean, it's big and complicated, but it all fits into one cell. Sometimes I use one, sometimes I use the other. So, and how to do that same thing with a VLOOKUP without 100 lines in your table is the idea that an inexact lookup. So, if the student mark is 50 and 60, if it's greater than 50, they should, less than or equal to 50, it's an N. If it's less than or equal to 60, it's a D. So, so actually, the table. That's, remember when I talked about VLOOKUP last week, I said the last parameter is always false. I was really adamant about that, because generally with VLOOKUP you want to do an exact lookup, especially if you're doing things in a database sense. If you're trying to join two tables together, you want it to be an exact lookup with where the last parameter to be false. Oh, why did they ever do that? But sometimes it's useful for the last parameter to be true. And this is the case, where you want to do an inexact lookup. Give me the number that is kind of less than 50 and return an N. Give me the number that's less than a 60 and return a D. I realize there's a typo on this slide, and so I'm going to go to it, fix it. So you actually have to start with 0 in this case. So that's your lookup table looks like that. What it says is go along here and find the mark that is greater than this number but less than the next number, and then return this value here. This is what the inexact VLOOKUP looks like. So you can see why I didn't talk about the inexact VLOOKUP first, because it's kind of complex, and oftentimes, almost every time I do this, I have to actually implement the table, write the formula, and then realize that I've got it wrong and rejig the formula in the table to make it all work. So, like for example, when I wrote the slide, I was like, oh, N is 50, D is 60, but in this case, to make it work, you have to start with N is equal to 0. And it looks up, it finds the number that's less than that. So I'll show you how that works in the spreadsheet. So that's this one, grade using VLOOKUP. So it takes the 85, looks it up in the grade lookup table here. I'll show you that in a second. Columns A and B, returns to me the second column, and true is the inexact lookup. And you'll see the grade lookup is that 0, 50, 60, 70, 80. And DCDA. So what happens if I sort that? If I sort that table, because oftentimes you think, well, the A's are most important. I'm going to put the A's on the top. Oh, what did I do there? I sorted in descending order. I put the A's on the top. Then I go and look at the grades, and it totally screws up the lookup. The other thing about inexact lookups is it's got to be sorted in order. So the only things that works are the N's, and in fact they're all wrong too. The 85s are N's because it's sorted in the wrong way. So you notice it still says 80, 0, 70B, but because it's sorted in the wrong way, the VLOOKUP screws up. So Herminia, you can see why the if statement is sort of simpler. You can see what it's doing. This kind of works, but it's sort of magic. Yeah. So now it's fixed again. Yeah, I mean it's hard to make it. It's easy to make a mistake either way. Yeah. And I'll show you what that. I'll go back to that other one, that big long if formula. Is that going to work? Nope. Escape if statement. So you can paste that into Excel as well. And
So it gives you the same values even though it's a different way of doing it. That's the big long if statement. But then you'll see that you can't see the formula. It's too big. So it's really hard to edit it, and when it's got the enter signs in it, yeah, it's problematic. Great. So any questions about?
So,
Yeah.
in the inexact Dennis,
Yeah.
you're saying that the sorting, so it should be that the reference should be, which one is the sort, needs sorting? The reference needs to be chronological.
Yeah, it's the thing you're looking up has to be sorted. Because we're looking up student mark here. That's why this table is kind of funny. You know, it starts with 0. It's got the mark first. You know, generally, you know, a marks table would have A in the top corner and 0 and 50 down there. You know, it's kind of backwards.
So the true instead of the false word makes it an inexact.
Inexact. Yeah. Having the true at the end makes it inexact, and then you can do things like
And
this.
then so that's for ranges, like 6 range with the true. Is it? Because how did it know that it's between 0 to 50? So
Yeah.
That's
The range, exactly. It's a range lookup. Yeah, right. I think that's what they call it when we go to the formula. Range lookup. That's their parameter, their optional parameter. Great. More questions about that? Lovely. Cool. So let's talk about the exam. I think because you're all the people who come to class you probably all had a little look at the exams. Any questions about the exams just before I go over them in summary? So did you look at any of the questions and go, oh,
typo.
oh, good. Which one was that one?
The typo.
Well, both, but
Typo is
the typo.
Yeah, 2011 instead of something like 20.
Oh, the mistake. Yes. Yeah. Well, there'll definitely be some mistakes in this one.
Oh.
I always have a few mistakes just for fun.
Yeah, but then how would you know that it's a mistake? Because we might think that, Dennis is just trying to trick us. And then, we do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I know it's a mistake because everyone answers it the wrong way consistently. And then I think, oh. And then I look and then I go, oh, yeah, I made a mistake.
So that's a bonus point.
That's a bonus mark. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Or, like you could basically, I give you marks whether you answered it this way or that way. Whether you read my mind and answered it the way that I wanted you to answer it, or you read it the way the question said to answer it. I know, really. I'll tell you, people are very bad at it, They'll be like, 95 out of 100 who don't read my mind when I make a mistake with the questions. Really. So, Sally, what was the one that made you groan?
The access script, the right diagrams and all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, yeah. No, you're right. It's very short. It's the most intense 2 hours I've ever seen. It's people are no one laughs. They just work.
Yeah. Here, you have to think before you can even
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So 2 hours.
Yeah. I think I'll give you 15 minutes or something like that for the ER diagram. That's true. Yeah.
It takes like one workshop to be able to finish.
Yeah.
So that's 2 hours.
Okay. I'm mean, okay? Good. ER diagram, good. Did anyone look at the exam with feelings of joy and or pain? Did you look at any of the things and said, oh, I can do that? That's the Excel stuff. Okay, good. So I probably won't go over that so much. Well, actually, let's go through one of those things then. Enough of this sitting around chatting. You came in, all came in today. exam. Close that one. Don't save. Move your home. There.